In this video, we're going to look at how to multiply rational expressions. The rational expressions are basically fractions with variables in there, not only numbers, but also variables. Now, if we recall the rule to multiply fractions, multiply straight across and simplify, or simplify then multiply straight across. So again, the second way is usually better because that can simplify the numbers or the variables to smaller ones, and then we can multiply smaller numbers or less variables. So let's look at this question here. Now, first we apply the rule, multiply straight across when we multiply fractions, but we're not actually going to multiply them. We're just going to write them the top times top, 2b times 14c, and the bottom times the bottom, 7x times 5b. So leave them as they are. And next, we're going to try to reduce the numbers and the variables as much as possible. And then we're going to multiply and the top and the bottom separately. So if we look at the top, we are going to, so we have the top number 2 and 14, the bottom number 7 and 5. And if the mixture of numbers and variables confuse you, you could separate them out into two questions. So first we're going to write the top number 2 and top number 14. And notice between all the numbers and the variables, there's a multiplication symbol. If there's nothing, it also means multiplication. So it's 2 times 14. In the bottom, we have 7 times 5. So we can separate the numbers from the variables. And then the variables, we're going to write them separately. So the top has a b and a c, the bottom has a x and a b. Okay, so we can turn this question into two separate parts and then work on them separately and then put the answer together. So when we work on the multiplication of fractions, we can do something we did before. So first of all, we're going to look at the 2 and 7. And they don't have anything in common. And 2 and 5, they don't have anything in common. So we cannot reduce 2 with any of the bottom numbers. But when we look at the 14 and the 7, they both have 7 in common, so we're going to divide both of them by 7. So that's going to give us 1, because 7 divided by 7 is 1. 14 divided by 7, that gives us 2. And that's all we can reduce. And notice the 2 doesn't have anything in common with 5. And so that's how I got. So this 2 is simply brought down from here. But this 2 actually comes from 14 because we reduced the 14 to a 2. So this 14 is reduced down to 2. What we did here is divide 14 by 7. That gives us a 2. And the bottom, and this 7 is reduced down to a 1. And I actually did not put a 1 there because 1 times anything will be the other thing. So the 1 can be, this 1 can be omitted. But if you want, you can put it down. And this 5, we will bring it down because this 5 did not reduce with any numbers from the top. Okay, so you could do this and just write down the top numbers, 2 and a 2 and 1 and 5. So after you multiply, then you will get 4 over 5. But if you feel comfortable working with the mixture, and you could just do, okay, so 2 and a 7, nothing in common, 2 and a 5, nothing in common, so I'm going to have to leave that 2 there. But 14 and a 7, they both have 7 in common, so we're going to divide both of them by 7. And that way, we're going to reduce this 7 down to a 1. So you can bring that 1 down and reduce this 14 down to a 2, so you bring that 2 down here. But 2 and a 5, they stay because we didn't reduce them. Now, next we look at the variables. So now it's much clearer when you separate them, but later on, if you you are much better with the mixture, you don't have to separate them out. So when we look at the variables, and a previous example, we talked about that we can, whenever we have a number, any number, if I can use that to represent a number, if we have the same number, at the bottom. So it's pretty much this number divided by itself. We always get 1. Or you can say they cancel out because they both have the same number. So both of them can throw out the number and you're left with 1. So it doesn't matter whether this number is x is represented by the variable x or a or b or c, anything. So as long as the top and the bottom they match, when we divide them, we always get 1. And so here, when we look at the top and bottom, b and x, they don't match, so we cannot really divide them. But this b and that b, they match, so we can divide them. We actually get a 1. But you could just cross them out because 1, if you keep a 1 here and a 1 there, and we're still going to end up with, so these ones, after we multiply them with the c and x, it's just going to give us a c, because 1 times c is c, x times 1 is x. So the 1 can simply omitted. Okay, so this would be the top. After we simplify all the variables, we're going to get c at the top and x at the bottom. So if we put the top, the number and the variable together, we end up with 4c, and the bottom 5 and number 5 and the variable at 5x together. So that's the final answer. So it looks complicated, but it's literally separate. It's just we multiply the variables and variables and letters and numbers and numbers, and then we reduce. Okay, so if we or actually you can reduce them first and then multiply. So if when you're familiar with the procedure, you don't have to separate them out. So when we do the problems, we just look at the numbers, ignore the letters first, and after you're done with the numbers, and you are going to work on the variables, say, okay, I see a b here and b there. They can be canceled out. C and x cannot be reduced. So we're going to keep c and x, c at the top, x at the bottom. So that's the final answer. And you can also take a look at your final answer to make sure that you have, right. So when you, after you reduce everything, so you have this 2 stays, and that 2 is reduced from 14. And this b is crossed out, and we have a c. And right here we have 7 reduced down to 1, x stays, and the 5 stays, and the b is reduced. So we can just get the answer 4c, and 1 times x is x, x times 5 is 5x, or x times 5. But usually we like to put the number in front of variable. So the answer would be 4c over 5x. So which would be the same as you working them out separately and then put them together to get a 4c and put the bottoms together to get 5x.